Shahzad lives in a village that is ruled by a caliph, which is kind of like a king. He's very young. And there are a bunch of these little villages that make up this kingdom, and they've been terrorized recently because this king, this caliph, every day takes a new bride and marries her in the evening and kills her in the morning. Shahrazad's best friend, her cousin, is one of the most recent victims. And she's decided that she's just had enough of this and someone has to try something in order to get this terror to stop. So, a couple of things about Shahrazad. She is very strong. She has older brothers and they are soldiers. And every time they came home on leave, they would teach her how to fight, how to shoot an arrow. She's really cunning. And so she's not like your typical woman in her times. She is also a gifted storyteller. They call on her, the people of her village, whenever they have a fest or they have a bonfire, they call her over and they're like, Shahrazad, Shahrazad, tell us one of your stories. And she tells a story that just weaves and weaves and pulls people into the story until they're just mesmerized and they can sit there for hours listening. So she decides one day, shortly after her cousin, her best friend, has died, that she is going to volunteer to be the caliph's next bride. And her family's horrified and they beg her not to go. But she decides if anybody has a chance of taking out this caliph, she's going to do it. And so she packs her things. She goes to the castle. They get married. They have their wedding night. And she starts to weave a story. And just like everyone else in her life, the caliph is just mesmerized. And he's listening to her for hours. And dawn breaks. And there's a knock at the door. And Shahrazad knows that it's the soldiers that are there to take her to her death. And she's not done with the story. And the caliph wants to hear the end of the story. So he grants her a stay and he lets her live because she says she will continue the story that evening. And so thus begins this really interesting story where Shahrazad is always kind of one step ahead of the caliph and his plans to kill her. And as she spends more time in this castle, and she gets to know him better and starts to see what's going on, she begins to realize that there's a lot more to this story than she or anyone else in the villages knows. So it's part mystery, part romance. It's called The Wrath and the Dawn. It is a duology, which means there's two books in the series and both of them are published.